Okay, if you could get your seats, please. What we're doing is in this room, there are several papers on theology, and the papers on science are in section A next door. So science papers next door, theology papers in here. So we'll just spend a couple of minutes while people get settled. So theology papers are in here, science papers are in section A next door. Last call, theology papers are in here, science papers are in section A next door.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Professor Daniel Scheid in the Theology Department here at Duquesne University, and it's my pleasure to be moderating and hosting the first breakout session for theology papers. We have a slight change to the schedule. I believe we only have 2 of the papers of the 3 that are listed in the program, so I've given each presenter the option of speaking for a few more minutes or taking his time in doing so. We will have each presenter present his paper, and then we'll have time for questions on both papers at the end. Okay, so there should be plenty of time for discussion. Our first presenter is Father John Kamweri. Father Kamweri received his diploma in philosophy from University of Nairobi, a bachelor's in theology from the Pontifical Urban University, an MA in healthcare ethics from Duquesne University, and a PhD in healthcare ethics, again, from Duquesne University. He is the director of the Institute of Ethics at Uganda Martyrs University, and today he will be presenting a paper entitled Stewards of the Natural Environment Resources, a role for the Association of Religious in Uganda in sustaining Uganda's natural environment resources. Please help me welcome Father Kamweri.
The president of Duquesne University, the director and the chair of the Center for Healthcare Ethics, the organizers, all protocol observed, good morning. I would like to thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to come all the way from Uganda and come and share with you some ecological issues and how we are approaching them. My talk is about how the religious association in Uganda, they can be a very good platform, and they have a responsibility to be stewards of the natural environmental resources, and we are soon going to find out why. Very briefly, I will go through the abstract. The purpose is, the slogan often used to describe the scenic beauty of Uganda's natural environment is gifted by nature. And rightly so, Uganda is home to Lake Victoria and 4 other lakes, not to mention the crater lakes. Of the 241,550 square kilometers surface area, 41,743 square kilometers is covered by water. That's about 17%. And swamps. Forest cover is estimated at 14% or 15 by 2010. The country receives between 700 to 3,000 millimeters a year rainfall, and the temperatures of 16 to 31 centigrade. And that would be a very ideal ideal place for you to live in. To protect Uganda's environmental resources, the government enacted the National Environmental Act in 1995, right after the Rio Summit. And then the Act provided for the formation of the National Management Environmental Authority, called NEMA. And it was mandated with coordinating, monitoring, and supervising environmental-related activities. 20 years down the road, there are fewer success stories necessitating rethinking new strategies. NEMA, for instance, which is the State of Environmental Report, issued a State of Environmental Report in the year 2010, and some of the recent dossiers on the subject cast a worrying trend on the sustainability of the Uganda's natural environmental resources. Uganda faces severe soil erosion, decline in soil fertility, deforestation, pollution, loss of biodiversity, and depletion of forest cover, fish, and water resources. These environmental problems have been evidenced by the recurring, there is a phenomena which now we call Bududa landslides. It has happened twice. I will explain it. The near annihilation of wetlands in the Kampala Central Division and encroachment on one of the biggest tropical forests in East Africa, Weare forest. New strategies for sustainability of Uganda's natural environmental resources are needed. Beyond the NEMA, the Association of Religious in Uganda has an obligation to engage the communities in a God-given mandate of stewardship of the natural environmental resources to protect and restore. This shifts because usually the idea is that, government has the responsibility to protect the environment, and the advocacy, and also other stakeholders. Religious as such, probably we have not seen it as our primary responsibility to do that. And recently I went and we had a talk with the leaders of the ARU, Association of Religious in Uganda, and we said although it is not in their strategic plan of 2015 to 2017, now we are considering it very seriously to see that at least we smuggle it in. Yes. Okay, briefly, the process and outcome of objectives. Process. Protection of the natural environment requires being good stewards of what counts as a common good and repairing what is damaged calls for commitment to restorative justice. The outcome, I think, is nature harbors a reciprocity principle. We take a good care of the natural environmental resources, and nature takes good care of us. It's as simple as that. And the objectives to describe measures taken towards the sustainability of natural environmental resources in Uganda. 2, to discuss the limitations of these strategies used to protect the natural environmental resources. And 3, to identify a new role for the Association of Religious in Uganda in engaging sustainability of the natural environmental resources based on the principles of stewardship, common good, and restorative justice. Briefly, the Association of Religious in Uganda, the statistics, there are 85 registered member congregations, approximately 7,000 members working in 19 Catholic dioceses in Uganda. Their vision, a prophetic board of men and women, religious, inspired by the gospel values for transformation of members and society. Their mission, collaborate, support, and empower each other institution to live its unique charism within the mission of the church today. And 3, the kind of 5, the kind of apostolate they involve in is parish work, education like the schools, healthcare, hospitals, developmental activities like ministry to the youth, elderly, and children. And as you see, they have a bigger platform which they can use to advance ecological issues. Now, the recent encyclical of the Pope provided just an ideal framework for that. Laudato Si sets the tone for the new strategies in combating climate change. It calls for 3 things which the religious should find very important. First, a dialogue, and 2, conversion, and 3, a change of heart, a kind of a new attitude. And the ecological crisis in Uganda, among others, there are 3 aspects: extreme weather conditions and deforestation resulting in landslides and prolonged dry spells. 2, wetland degradation leading to water pollution and loss of biodiversity. 3, illegal dumping of solid waste. The Pope calls for the care of Earth, our home. He proposes an approach anchored on spirituality and virtue ethics. And the virtue ethics here is referring to respect for life. Beyond the usual approaches normally in Uganda, the approaches have been give scientific information on environmental degradation. And secondly, conscious raising, which is government and also maybe advocacy bodies. And thirdly, prevention of environmental risks. Maybe you make policies. If you have enough policies, you have advocacy, and you have scientific information that is supposed to transform into successful strategies. And that has not been happening. Now, ARU has a role as stewards of the natural environment resources to advance towards that. The message of the Pope simply is like this: the purpose. It is addressed to all people, dialogue with all people of the world about our common home. That's why the ARU is important. 2, drawing upon the canticle of St. Francis of Assisi, Laudato Si, mi Signore, praise be to you, my Lord. Pope Francis reminds us that Earth is our sister, with whom we share a common home. We are interconnected. But this sister is now sick: the soil, the land, the air, and all biotic life, and she's groaning. We are responsible. Our greed, our selfishness, our insatiable craving for goods to consume, driven by markets and profit. And now the Pope calls for those 3 things I talked about: a dialogue, a conversion, and a new heart, a new attitude. Here I went home and I found my friend here, the goat, and those 2 hens. And they were saying, Earth is our home. We are interconnected. Let us take care of each other. Aspects of the present ecological crisis, as the Pope describes them and how they apply to Uganda. Humanity and the world, that relationship between humanity and the world. Humanity, on one hand, is characterized by intensive pace of life and work, rapidification, even in Uganda now, industrialization, manufacturing, and consuming the goods. And it is not always for the common good. And secondly, in between, we have resulted into pollution, climate change, loss of biodiversity, decline in the quality of human life, global inequality, weak responses, variation of opinions. Now, the world doesn't work like that. It is naturally slow. We have built schools, and we want to make as many chairs as possible, but a tree takes 20 years to grow to the level of a chair. So that pace is not... this is what we are familiar with, this knowledge about the relationship between global warming, pollution, global warming, and climate change. They are interconnected. The idea that global warming, Earth warms by heat from the sun, most it is absorbed and then emitted back to space. In the troposphere, nitrogen is 78%, oxygen 21%, and the other gases are only 1%, argon, carbon dioxide, water vapor, and traces of chemical. Now, the idea of the greenhouse gases, that these gases help us to trap much of the heat to keep Earth warmer and life sustainable. If it didn't, then Earth would be very cold and it would be unlivable. In the troposphere, beyond 15 miles upwards, we find the ozone, which contains the global sunscreen to block the ultraviolet rays. This is important. The Pope mentioned it, but did not go in detail to describe it. But it says this is the scientific information upon which he launched his appeal. And this greenhouse effect, air pollution, causes this kind of air pollution. Human industrial activities, burning fossil fuels, like in Uganda, most of the fuel, like wood, is used a lot in schools. These religious, they have many schools, they have hospitals. And the source of energy they use is get wood, cut the forest and get wood, and then use that. And that's why it is important here. And also the other fissile, using oil and gas and other stuff. So this has increased, making the concentration much thicker and making it very difficult, keeping the earth more warmer and creating all the problems that we are talking about, the desertification and the other kind of problems. So pollution, what the Pope says here applies to Uganda, especially with the issue of pollution, global warming, and climate change. In their experience, people are exposed to indoor smoke from fuels. They burn it to cook. In Uganda, this is very often people cooking within the house, many people, and they use either kerosene or other stuff. And outdoor point source and non-point source pollution from transport, industrial fumes, fertilizers, insecticide, fungicide, herbicides, agrotoxins. In Uganda, this is increasing. More people are now using herbicides and pesticides, which was not a phenomenon that was there before. And technology linked to business interest is then advanced to solve the problems. That's what the purpose says. And for instance, in Uganda, the solution to solving the problem of unsafe water is kind of industrializing and making drinkable water a market commodity. For example, you bring in the investors, then they purify the water, they bottle it, and they sell it to people at $0.25. And when those people, they earn less than $1 a day, already a quarter has to go to a bottle of water. And my grandmother can't afford that. When the most logical thing would be to invest in making safe water available for all. And that's part of a problem of technology. And also now solving the problem of food scarcity. Okay, let us introduce the genetically modified organisms or food. And then the problem will begin to arise. People are using more, they have not, indirectly it is there, but officially it is being debated in the parliament. But then the idea of beginning to use pesticides and the herbicides and other kind of stuff, and also now knowing that Uganda don't have the scientists who can deal with that, we have to import the scientists from industrialized countries, and the patent belongs to industrialized countries, and we have this kind of problem. So those are issues that we deal with. I took this photo in one of the outskirts of Kampala. Previously, this was like a swampy area, and there was vegetation around it. But now, because of those industrial activities going on there, there's a lot of pollution coming into that stream. And okay, they are doing the Kampala City Council. They always put men and women to clean it, but the more they clean it, the more people dump this stuff in there, and it becomes a problem. So Uganda Vision 2040 is to make the country a middle-class income party by accelerating industrial growth. Due to the heavy dependence on non-renewable energy, Uganda should expect a dramatic increase in carbon emission. Rapid urbanization has also increased the solid waste accumulation, which also emit greenhouse gases such as methane, carbon dioxide, and others. The problem of solid waste, pollution produced by residues. Accumulation of solid waste, much of it is non-degradable, highly toxic, and radioactive from homes, business, construction sites. Industrial waste and chemicals can lead to bioaccumulation in organisms. Measures are taken after people fall sick. This is what the Pope commented. But this picture, I took it in Uganda. The whole of Uganda is not like this, so don't get worried about coming there. Yeah, this is an area in the outskirts, and you see that water body there. That water is no longer safe, it's no longer drinkable, when it was very, very good water, clean water. So you see they dump there, those are plastics, nylon papers, and all that kind of stuff. And these are the residents and other people who do that. Outcome of a throwaway culture, Popo talked about that. The throwaway culture, which easily reduces things to rubbish. The industrial model has not developed the capacity to recycle, reuse waste, and byproducts. Maybe here, yes, they try to recycle and do that, but back there, it's not yet done. And now forests are supposed to mitigate climate change. As we know, the way they help with taking the carbons we don't want, give us the oxygen, and also create the rain for us and those kind of stuff. But forests mitigate climate change by absorbing the carbons, but forest cover is on critical decline in Uganda. The General Auditor's Report of 2010 established that the National Forest Authority was unable to effectively counter deforestation. 4 districts, Mubende, Mityana, and Wakiso, have lost half of the forest cover. Actually, Mayuge district lost the entire forest cover by 2010, and Mubende had lost, Wakiso had lost like 87, and Mubende around 70-something forest cover. The same report had noted that the National Forest Authority has failed to meet its afforestation targets between Yes, between 2004 and 2008. So when the National Forest Authority, they encourage the planting of trees, and the government, they provide the seedlings. But usually when they plant trees, most of these trees are exotic trees, like maybe eucalyptus trees, and they don't support the biodiversity which is originally there. And that becomes a problem. Okay, Popo talks about other issues here. I'm not going to go in details, but the issue of water, loss of biodiversity, quality of human life, global inequality, and weak responses. What ARU members can do with the concept of stewardship? The concept of stewardship. Stewardship entails care. It entails compassion. It entails prudent use of resources necessary to sustain life. That's what stewardship is all about. And it entails trust, because as steward, you are entrusted with somebody who gave you that resources on behalf of the common good. So it entails trust, it entails ethical behavior, it entails good decision making. The Holy Father titles this encyclical, The Care of Earth, Our Home. And that hammers home the point of stewardship. It will require spirituality, conversion, and change of heart. Now we are shifting away. You notice an addition. Previously, we were talking about a mode of giving scientific information, advocacy, and also policy development and other stuff. But now this new idea is that, you know what, this is a spiritual matter, and also it's an ethics of virtue. And it talks, this is about a change of heart, this is about conversion. So the discussion changes a little here, or maybe fundamentally. It will require also ethical virtue, and this talks about respect for life. Anchoring ecological harmony on spirituality and ethics, this I told you about the approaches which are there. The trend, there have been a trend, as the Father acknowledges, that has been shifting, but has not been enough. So spirituality and ethics, we need to make a transcendental kind of change, which gives ecological ethics its deepest meaning. Spirituality is foundational to developing new conviction, new attitude, and new forms of life. Or Popo talks about a change of lifestyle. Conversion, acknowledging our greed, our sins against the creation. Because we can have the policies, we can have the advocacy, we can have what, but if we don't acknowledge that we are responsible, me as an individual, and we say the government is the one supposed to do this, me as an individual, if I don't acknowledge that I'm responsible for this, then I cannot have a change. Spirituality role for ALU in ecology. The first one is prayer, because, you know, religious associations, we as the religious and others, you know that prayer plays an important role. But the Pope is not only proposing for the religious, but for everybody. The encyclical itself starts with a prayer, and the prayer of St. Francis, which is a prayer of praise, trying to praise this. And it's a model of ecological harmony, Laudato Si in Signore, praise be to God. The Pope followed up this commitment with a declaration, 1st September, he declared it a day of prayers for the environment. And actually at Uganda Martyrs University, we celebrated this day. We had 2 masses for that, and we planted trees, one on the students and one on the staff. And we did that, and we involved the students in different activities. And then one of the professor, philosophy professor, told me, you know what are you going to do? He said, we are going to pray for the environment. The environment doesn't need prayers. It is you, the people, who need prayers. But I will explain this, that there are different forms of prayers. And so prayer now becomes central in dealing with ecological crisis. Prayer has been used in peace when there is war. Prayer has been used in justice. The church has advanced prayer in many other crises. So it's not out of grace that prayer becomes central in ecological crisis, because it is about the heart, about change of heart, about conversion, about me understanding my relationship with my God, with other people, and also with creation. And there are different forms of prayer, prayer of praise, like this one, Laudato Si, praise be to God. There's a prayer of thanksgiving. Religious in Uganda are thinking of beginning to come up with the prayers. Why don't we have a canticle of St. Francis in our morning prayers? Why don't we have a canticle or prayer of thanksgiving? Why don't we have a prayer of petition, like the Pope gave us a prayer of petition in the encyclical? Why can't we in our prayers and in our word? Why don't we bring that kind of raised consciousness? And also the idea of understanding that creation, I think I'm operating time. Creation is a sacramental sign. Sacramental sign. And this is not a new idea to the religious. We find that creation is like an encounter with God. It helps us encounter God. And we see it basically, the Pope says creation reaches its greatest exaltation in the Eucharistic celebration, when we find that the cross, the wood on which our Lord Jesus Christ was crucified on, comes from the tree. When we realize that the water, we use it for our baptism. When we find that the water, we use it for blessing. When we find out that the flowers that we put on the altar, they have a significant place. And so this a call for the religious to think about that. I will talk also about scripture and Judeo-Christian tradition, that the religious can also use this to advance the ecological crisis. The last one I will talk about ethics and the role of arrow in ecology. The Pope is optimistic that the dignity of human being, which enables them to rise above their self-centeredness and open up to what is good, will prevail and make it possible for other creatures to be recognized for their true worth. This capacity is God's given ability to respond to His grace at work within our hearts. And what is required is to make a self-ecological commitment in the cultivation of sound virtue. Here, the idea of sound virtue is that Pope thinks that virtue is going to play a great role in our lives. Virtue is about character formation and character traits that we develop. If we develop a character trait of respect for the environment and respect for nature, that can change things. And he says that the Holy Father teaches that education in virtue can translate into respect for environment and into very practical actions, such as not wasting food, reducing on the use of plastics, recycling, conserving water. These are things that religious can do, and in collaboration with others. Trees reusing instead of discarding, saving energy. For the Pope, these kind of actions also raise our self-esteem. And the religious in Uganda can take the lead in ecological. Finishing, I think I have one slide here. Environment is committed to virtue ethics. There are some environmentalists who have been committing to virtue ethics. And virtue ethics raises duties. The duty, one of the duties, not maleficence, not to do harm, non-interference, respect for other species, fidelity, and restorative justice. If we have destroyed and cut down the trees, why don't we restore them? Why don't we afforestation? And the last thing is that these duties, sometimes there is a conflict. A conflict arises between these duties. And when the conflict arises, always in ethics we have procedural standards, such as self-defense, proportionality, and minimum wrong. If a lion comes to attack me, I don't say, oh, I have the encyclical here, it says respect for creation. But there I can use a procedural principle, self-defense. Or if it is Ebola, I can say virus is also a creature from God. I can use self-defense or minimum wrong, that kind of stuff. And the last one is that settings such as schools, media, and catechesis become more profound in the family. These have become now a place for ecological teaching. I will not go because of time. What we see that in the family, we learn simple gestures of heartfelt courtesy, proper use of things, order of cleanness, respect for local ecological systems. And that's the last saying. Nature harbors a reciprocity principle. We take good care of nature, environmental resources. Nature takes good care of us. Thank you very much. And I'm going to sneak in an advert. We are going to start a master's program in bioethics in Uganda, the first in East Africa, next year at Uganda Martyrs University. So I would appeal for, if you are volunteers who come to Uganda or East Africa, you're welcome to help us. We only two who have advanced in bioethics, and would like you, if you come as volunteers, or if you have books you would like to send to us. That's an advert. Thank you very much.